As dental students, graduates, or practitioners, we always dream of having a successful business. Who is a better person to teach us than someone who is the CEO of a Fortune 500 company? Let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Stanley Bergman, the chairman and CEO of Henry Schein, to talk about his 10 lessons learned from Southend to the Fortune 500. Mr. Stanley is another recipient of the Dental Luminary Award. Before his session starts, watch this short video to find out about his immense contributions to dentistry and why he was nominated to win the Dental Luminary Award.
Since 1989, Stanley M. Bergman has been chairman of the board and CEO of Henry Schein, Inc., a Fortune 500 company and the world's largest provider of healthcare products and services to office-based dental and medical practitioners, with more than 19,000 Team Schein members and operations or affiliates in 31 countries and territories. Henry Schein is a member of the S&P 500 Index. In 2020, the company and sales reached $10.1 billion. Henry Schein has been a Fortune World's Most Admired Company for 20 consecutive years. Mr. Bergman serves as a board member or advisor for numerous institutions, including New York University College of Dentistry, the University of Pennsylvania School of Dental Medicine, the Columbia University Medical Center, University of the People, Hebrew University, Tel Aviv University, the University of the Witwatersrand Fund, the World Economic Forum's Healthcare Governors, the Business Council for International Understanding, and the Metropolitan Opera. Mr. Bergman is an honorary member of the American Dental Association and the Alpha Omega Dental Fraternity. Mr. Bergman is the recipient of the Ellis Island Medal of Honor, the CR Magazine Corporate Responsibility Lifetime Achievement Award, the 2017 CEO of the Year Award by Chief Executive Magazine, honorary doctorates from the University of the Witwatersrand, Western University of Health Sciences, Hofstra University, A.T. Still University's Arizona School of Dentistry and Oral Health, Case Western Reserve University, and Farmingdale State College, and honorary fellowships from King's College London, Dental Institute, and the International College of Dentists. Stan and Dr. Marion Bergman and their family are active supporters of organizations fostering the arts, higher education, and cultural diversity, as well as grassroots health care and sustainable entrepreneurial economic development initiatives in the United States, Africa, and other developing regions of the world. Mr. Bergman is a graduate of the University of the Witwatersrand in South Africa and is a South African chartered accountant and an NYS certified public accountant, CPA.
Good morning from New York City, and good afternoon, good evening to the membership of your organization, the International Students Dental Association. It is indeed a deep honor for me to accept this award, and Hussein, thank you very much for that most generous introduction. I, of course, accept this award on behalf of 19,000 Team Schein members around the world. I do compliment the work of the International Students Dental Association, particularly this conference. You are at a pivotal moment in dentistry. This is a very exciting time to be entering the dental profession. There is now much that has been published on the direct correlation between good oral care and good healthcare. There is a clear understanding in healthcare today that those that take care of their teeth will live a healthier, longer life. This is clear. The technology is abounding in dentistry. So this is a very, very exciting time to enter the profession. I was asked to talk about my life. You may ask about why from South End, and of course the Fortune 500, Henry Schein is known to be a Fortune 500 company. Well, South End was actually a community in a city by the name of Port Elizabeth, South Africa. It was one of the last multicultural communities in apartheid South Africa. It was a community where people from all walks of life got along, and my parents had their business in that community. There were people from all over what was then known as the British Empire, all getting along and everyone learning from each other. The apartheid government dismantled that community, a tragedy. I learned a lot growing up in that community. I'm sitting in my study, and behind me is a picture of Southend, and you'll see right in the middle is a minaret, which commanded the whole community, but there was every kind of church, synagogue, and everything that you could think of from a religious point of view in that community. Everyone got along. In my study, you'll also see a picture from a prominent artist in Nigeria. This reflects my deep roots in Africa. And you'll see perhaps behind me, I'm not sure if you can see the whole picture, but it's the last picture, or one of the last pictures taken of President Mandela, who was an attorney, a young attorney, leaving his office. And of course, we all know that at some point he was imprisoned for 26 plus years. You'll also see a couple of books from my library that are really important to me. Of course, President Mandela, who I believe one of the greatest people of the 20th century, and also Eleanor Roosevelt, who is really the mother of much of human rights that has blossomed and helped draft the UN Charter along those lines. Of course, Winston Churchill, who showed determination, and yes, Abraham Lincoln, who played a monumental role in creating what is today still the greatest democracy in the world, although having gone through a very challenging period. So let me talk a little bit about the lessons I learned along the way. The first lesson I learned is to think big. Very clearly, if you have an idea, do not be shy. Well, I learned a lot from the late Jay Shine. He was my mentor. I'll talk about him later. That's the late Henry Shine's son, Jay. And he would be fond of quoting Robert Kennedy. Think big. Some men, and of course women, see things as they are and say, why? I dream of things that never were and say, why not? Why not could be the two most important words as you unfold your professional career. Why not? Then, I grew up in this little town called Port Elizabeth and had an interest in collecting stamps. So I used to write letters to postmaster generals around the world, would send them, I don't know, the equivalent of a couple of dollars, and they would send me stamps, and I would sell those stamps to collectors in the city that I grew up. The then Consul General of Germany in that city, Mr. Bulbrink, would pick me up every Tuesday evening and drive me to the Philatelic Society at Port Elizabeth. And you know what? I started a business. I was pretty young. I was probably 8 or 9 years old. And so I learned at a very young age that the world is big. It's paid off in spades. Everything we do at Henry Schein today, we think of from a global perspective. I would submit to you as a dental student, think big. Your education, your opportunity to train, your opportunity to do good can all be global. The third lesson I learned is from my hero, as I mentioned, President Mandela. The notion that failure is not an option. The bottom line is, yes, failure itself is an option, but in the end, you've got to succeed. And you know what? It's okay to fail along the way. Life owes us nothing, and we should expect to encounter many roadblocks along the way. Long term, you don't want to fail. Short term, it's okay. And you know what President Mandela said? Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. It is fine to have concerns. It is fine when you take a step to have fear, for your stomach to be a little queasy. You must do things you think you cannot do. That's what Eleanor Roosevelt said. You know what? You can do things that you believe you cannot do. Try it. Do one thing every day that scares you just a little bit. Of course, don't be paranoid, but try to do that one little thing that's just a little bit more than you feel comfortable doing. Go out of your comfort zone on a regular basis. Each of us at one time is a clay pot that has been made stronger, more useful, and more beautiful by undergoing the heat of the kiln. Just remember that. Now, one of the key lessons I learned from my parents, and particularly my late mother, growing up in this community of Port Elizabeth, and you see the picture behind me, and there's a picture on the screen, a small department store. My late mother taught me virtually every day, it's all about people. She was this little short woman, but a towering personality. And she would drum into my head, it's all about people. The Southern community traced its roots back 300 years, well, 250 years for sure. And my parents were welcomed, open arms. They were refugees from Nazi Germany into this community. Bottom line is, this community taught me a lot. This community taught me to get along with people of all backgrounds, to listen. Remember, we have one mouth, 2 ears. Listen twice as much as you talk, and look out for diversity. Look out for people that disagree with you. Look out for people that come from different walks of life, and see what you can do with it. Because I bet you, if you focus on diversity and you focus on people from different walks of life, you will learn a lot. Now, let's move to the next lesson. The fifth lesson I learned on my journey. It's important to show up. You know, sometimes we say, you know, I don't want to go to that meeting. I don't want to meet that person. It's just too much. I'll meet them later. But you know what? Show up. So what happened to me is I was a frail young boy. I had contracted asthma and had whooping cough as a young kid, 5 or 6 years old. And, you know, the drugs that we have today for asthma didn't really exist at that time. But people felt a little sorry for me. And my dad's friend had a portable transistor radio. I'm not sure if anybody on the screen even knows what a transistor radio is, but this was the first portable radio. And he gave it to me while at my late father's sports club. And I walked around with that, listening to the music in my ear, and somebody stopped me. And you know what? The person said to me, "What's that?" Tell them it's a radio. So transistor radio. The person said, "I want to buy one of those. Where can I get one?" So I took the person over to my late dad's friend who gave me the transistor radio, introduced the two parties. The radio was sold, and I got a commission check. Had no idea what a commission check was. I was 6 years old. But the bottom line is I was there, and the opportunity came. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is the importance of family and friends. So I mentioned that I had asthma, and at that time, no pills. So what my parents used to do is send me into the hinterland of South Africa to a place called Cradock. Cradock is in a place called the Karoo, from those that are familiar with South Africa. It's a semi-desert region, very dry, and good for people with asthma. So there, I met the farm workers. And at that time in South Africa, I'm going back 60 plus years, basically farm workers lived in abject poverty. It was a repressive apartheid regime, and these people were really almost slaves. In fact, they were slaves. I got to spend time with these people, the farm workers. And you know, they were warm and caring people, virtually in serfdom. But what I learned, one thing, the importance of family and trusted friends. These people were close within their family unit, excuse me, and very close friendship amongst the various family units. Very important lesson. Now, the next lesson I'd like to talk about briefly is be persuasive. If you have an idea, you gotta sell it. No one else is selling it for you. So on this farm in Cradock, they had these tractors. But now I was 9 years old, and I really wanted to drive a tractor. So I persuaded the farm workers that they should let me drive the tractor. You know what? I drove the tractor. It was cool. But then what happened is they had horses, and I really wanted to ride a horse. And the farm workers really wouldn't let me ride the horse. So I sold and sold and sold and finally got to ride the horse. I actually fell off the horse. No one ever told my parents, and I actually had a tractor accident. No one told my parents about that either. But the bottom line I learned, if you have an idea, sell it. Because at the end of the day, you will be there and get things done by being persuasive. And now my 8th lesson to you. Somebody has to ask me, what makes a good leader? And I would say, what makes a good camp counselor? A camp counselor, where kids come to a summer camp, as they do in the US and other parts of the world, or even in cities where kids get together. What is the best experience a kid has at a summer camp? It's when everybody is engaged. So the best summer camp leaders, the counselors, are those that get everyone engaged. You know what? That's the way things work in business. I bet you that's the way they work in a dental school. When the professor gets everyone engaged in the class, when you're sitting in your practice later on, you're going to get your whole team involved, your colleagues involved. The bottom line is, apply the lessons from a camp counselor. I actually was one, and I learned a lot. Treat people how you want them, how you want to be treated yourself. Engage everyone in the mission. And there's a role for everyone in that camp counselor, and like there's a role for everyone in any good team. Every person can, in fact, make a difference. Now, we're getting to another very, very important lesson. Seek out caring mentors and be a mentor to others. We all need mentors. The bottom line is, we need people to give us ideas, to set the example. I had 4 tremendous mentors in my day. First, I had a terrible handwriting. So Mr. Earl, in my high school senior year, he sat with me and helped me at the end of my high school improve on my handwriting. It's still not better, but that was my first lesson in mentorship. The second was at University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg. I had a law professor, Professor Allison Kahn. He wrote the textbook. He knew that I was reasonably smart, but he couldn't read my handwriting in my final year exam. So what did he do? He brought me into his office and he said, read the paper to me. And you know what? I read it to him, and then we began a discussion on commercial law. Bottom line is, I got a high grade for that class, but Professor Allison Kahn sought me out. And I sought him out and took advantage of somebody that was prepared to spend time with me. Do that. Look for people, professors, look for colleagues, look for dentists, look for friends that will spend time with you, people that will teach you. The late Jay Shine was also one of these. He took a young man of 30 years old and he said, become the chief financial officer of Henry Schein and go out and raise $3 million in a loan. I had never done that before. He showed confidence, mentored me through it. Bottom line is I raised $3 million, which of course in today's terms would be a huge amount for a company like, would be multi-millions. But at that time, Henry Schein was a $40 million company. And then my major mentor in my business years was Professor Edward B. Schultz from the University of Pennsylvania, Wharton School of Business. He was the founder of the first Center for Entrepreneurial Studies and any academic university, certainly in the United States. And Dr. Schultz would mentor me on 2 concepts. He said, you can be an entrepreneur in a big company. He called that entrepreneurship, and he mentored me through that. And then he mentored me through a concept that he had in common with President Mandela. And that concept is be comfortable with ambiguity. Things don't always turn out to be right and wrong. Of course, right and wrong from a legal and ethics point of view should never be a gray area. But in business, there are many decisions, and in your practice, there'll be many decisions you have to make that are not 100% right, that are not 100% black or white, and you've got to be able to operate in a world of ambiguity. And now, my ninth lesson to you: seek out colleagues who can mentor you. First group I spoke about was seek out people external, but seek out colleagues. And I've had a partner for 45 years, Jim Breslowski. We met when we were both young accountants, and Jim mentored me on the notion. I'm always rushing a million miles an hour, I want to do everything. He said to me one time, Stan, we can do anything, but not everything. He taught me to focus. And then what is also important for me, I've learned a lot from younger people in my own business. The millennials have coached me in a significant way. And then, of course, there are those that I work with daily. Our CFO, who's never found an idea that I've had that he thinks is good, and the head of business development in my business, who's never found an idea that he doesn't think is good. Bringing those together, mentoring, are really, really important. So seek out mentors, but also seek out caring mentors. And even if they may not necessarily be alive, but to me, Muhammad Ali is one of those mentors in the background. And Muhammad Ali said, service to others is the rent you pay for our room here on the earth. And you know what? He and the late Benjamin Franklin had the same idea. The concept of working together, doing well by doing good, which is my 10th lesson, namely that business needs to be focused on enlightened self-interest. Self-interest, but for the interest of society as well. And I would submit to you in your practice, if you do good in your practice, free services for the underserved, for the poor, it will pay back in spades. So my last lesson to you is doing well by doing good. And I will end my remarks today with a key lesson that I have always taken throughout my life, or at least for the last decades. And that is the notion that President Mandela made very, very clear. The notion that things may be difficult, but, and I will leave you with this last slide, remember, things may be very, very, very difficult, but don't be shy to take on challenges, as I noted, dream big, and at the end of the day, remember what President Mandela had to say. It always seems impossible. It always seems impossible until it's done. So saying, those are some quick thoughts on my journey from growing up in South End, South Africa, in this multicultural society, and now being the CEO of a Fortune 500 company that is viewed by Fortune magazine and as one of the best companies in the world. So thank you very much. And if there's time, maybe I went too long, happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley.
Thank you.
Dear attendees, we have a 10-minute break before the next session.